Hello, everybody, and good afternoon, and welcome to our 2022 Virtual Advocacy Days. I'm so excited to have all of you here today. My name is Aya Ziada, and I'm AGP Action's Advocacy Director. Thank you so much for joining us for our annual public plenary sessions, where we'll be discussing all things Palestine and U.S. policy with members of Congress, advocates, and intellectuals from all scopes. Over the last couple of years, more people have begun to discover the truth about Israel's long-lasting practices of human rights abuses, ranging from occupation and settler colonialism, causing a notable decline in support for the state. Although there's still so much to be done, we're closer than ever to holding Israel accountable for its human rights violations. To kick off our congressional plenary, we have two keynote speakers with us today. Before passing the mic to our executive director, Dr. Osama Abuirshaid, I'd like to introduce our first keynote speaker and this year's champion of Palestinian Rights Awardee, Congresswoman Marie Newman. Rep. Newman represents Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, which covers the southwest side of Chicago, as well as its surrounding suburbs. Congresswoman Marie Newman is a proud leader in the pro-justice and pro-peace movement. She was the first to speak up against the disparities in COVID-19 vaccinations for the Palestinian people, co-sponsored Representative Betty McCollum's H.R. 2590, and spearheaded one of the most powerful letters to the State Department to denounce Israel's theft of homes in Sheikh Jarrah and the demolitions of Palestinian homes. Now I'd like to welcome our Executive Director, Dr. Osama Abuirshaid.
Thank you, Aya. Over the duration of her service in Congress, Mary Newman has been an embodiment of moral and political courage. She is one of a very few in Congress who constantly put principles before political expediency or personal gains, and who has never budged from standing up for the rights of the oppressed, even when it was inconvenient to speak up. Whether it is fighting for her constituents or standing up for the underprivileged everywhere around the world, her actions are always guided by an unshakable conviction and a steady moral compass. This is uniquely exemplified in her leadership for racial and social justice, as well as in advocating for Palestinian human rights. Congresswoman Mary Newman is a genuine moral leader and an authentic voice for justice, liberty, and equality for all. It is my distinct honor to present the Champion of Palestinian Rights Award to Congresswoman Mary Newman. The award reads as follows: Americans for Justice in Palestine Action presents to Representative Mary Newman the Champion of Palestinian Rights Award for her courageous advocacy for Palestinian liberation and self-determination, September 20, 2022. Congresswoman, the floor is yours.
Osama, and it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know AJP Action and working so closely with them. So good afternoon, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. It's so good to be here. I can't tell you how honored I am to receive this amazing presentation. It is truly an honor, and I'm so glad to be here. You know, I have said this probably hundreds of times with groups like this, is that while it is lovely to receive this, and I can't tell you how honored I am, we shouldn't have to praise people for doing the right thing, right? Is that I view what my team, my supporters, my colleagues, my collaborators all have done in conjunction with me to be the right thing, to speak up for justice, to speak up for peace, and to speak up for what's right, and to speak up for humanitarian rights is just doing the right thing. So while it is lovely to receive this award, and I couldn't be more honored, I have to tell you that everybody should, this is just the right thing. We should all be doing this. So with that, I think we all know that there has been an uphill battle in Congress to speak up for humanitarian rights, whether it is Palestinian rights, Syrian rights, Yemeni rights, on and on. There's a long list, sadly, India, Kashmir, the Uyghurs in China, on and on. But I will tell you, I'm forever grateful for the leadership of some of my colleagues, Andy, Rashida, Betty, Ilhan, and several others, André, who have all come to the fore and really stood up under not the greatest of circumstances. I will tell you that there are times when Congress, other members of Congress are really upset that we're standing up for humanitarian rights. And you have to be a bit unwavering, and it's not for the faint of heart. So thank you to all of those colleagues who have felt the way that I have. So I accept this award with all of them as well. I have to tell you that I'm so proud of the team at home here in Illinois 3 and all of the team members, not just of AGP Action, but all of the coalition of folks that bring this incredible message of justice in Palestine to the fore every day. And they do the real work on the ground and work hard and sometimes thanklessly. So I accept it with them as well. I have to tell you, I have the greatest honor of representing what we believe to be is the largest Palestinian American community in all of the United States. And that has been the true honor, that they have been great counselors, mentors, and collaborators with me, not just on the issue of Palestine, but on all humanitarian rights, helping with COVID, making sure that everybody gets equity in life, whether it is, housing, education, social services, mental health care, and the like. We are all just a great team of folks here. So I'm forever in their debt. But I think we all agree that the reason we do all of this is that we have to end this cycle of oppression in Gaza, the West Bank, all the occupied territories everywhere, right? Because we wouldn't stand for this in other parts of the world. Why are we standing for it here? I'll say this, what I said about the home theft in Sheikh Jarrah is that home theft is home theft. Being anti-humanitarian rights is the same around the world, whether it's Montreal, Gaza, Chicago, Korea, whatever it is. It's the same definition, and we have to stand firm and be against all of those things that are wrong. So I'm so glad, just learned recently that Senator Van Hollen's amendment passed the Senate. And I think that that's just a big step forward right there. I urge you all to continue to work with your senators. They need education, and they need to understand that they have the support to move forward. Because I'll tell you a little secret is that some members of Congress and the Senate are just bold, right? And they're a bit fearless. Others need to see that the support is there. So keep supporting them, keep giving them information, keep educating them, but be a squeaky wheel. I've found that in my career, that is the most important thing. So I encourage you to be squeaky, but keep on working towards that. I think that we still need to have a lot of work to do around a sincere effort around creating a viable, continuous two-state solution pre-1967 borders, and ultimately where we all want to land. We all have the same objective, no matter who we are, right? Is that we want Palestine and Israel to be free and safe and prosper, right? So I think we can do this. I want to thank everybody here for their outstanding work on every front. And I want to thank you for this absolutely lovely award. And I hope everybody has a beautiful fall season. Thank you. And I hope you have an amazing meeting today.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Newman. It's been an honor working by your side throughout the last two sessions. Next up, we have Ariel Koren. Ariel is a Jewish Google worker who resigned this month after playing a key role in the protest against Google's contract with Israel, Project Nimbus. She is one of the organizers who co-created Jewish Diaspora in Tech and anti-nationalist Jewish organizing community of tech workers acting in solidarity with communities leading the fight against the carceral state, techno-militarism, and white nationalism. Having worked at Google Translate and for Google for Education, she is also the founder of Respond Crisis Translation, a collective of 3,000 language activists mobilizing around the clock to provide trauma-informed translation and interpreting support to asylum seekers amidst crisis. Ariel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone at the AJP Action Team for having me. Thank you to Aya Ziada for inviting me, and to Dr. Osama Abuirshaid for bringing us together. As Aya said, my name is Ariel. I'm a Jewish Google worker who worked at Google for 7 years. And 2 weeks ago, I had no choice but to resign due to Google's culture of unlawful retaliation and hostility towards workers who take a stand against unethical company behavior and in support of Palestinian rights. For a little bit of context and background, during May of 2021, in the middle of the needless Israeli military violence that killed over 250 Palestinian civilians in Gaza, Google decided to quietly roll out a new company project called Project Nimbus. Project Nimbus is a $1.2 billion cloud computing contract between Google, Amazon, and the Israeli government and military. Details are intentionally scarce, as the companies have been withholding information about Project Nimbus from their workforces and from shareholders. But what we know is that Google and Amazon will help construct data centers and provide cloud infrastructure to several Israeli government agencies, including Israel's military and the Israel Land Authority, which is the agency responsible for illegal Israeli settlement expansion. What's worse, the contract explicitly prevents Google and Amazon from shutting down their services in the future, including in the event of boycott pressure or employee protest. The contract explicitly makes the companies powerless to stop their services, regardless of whether the Israeli military and government use the technology to aid human rights violations. And the contract also stipulates that Google and Amazon have no right to regulate how the Israeli military and government put the powerful tools that the companies are building for them into use. So essentially, they're handing over these extremely powerful AI tools to the Israeli government and military, and then wiping their hands of any sort of responsibility to regulate how those tools get used. Documents that have been reported on by The Intercept show that through Project Nimbus, Google will be providing advanced AI tools. The Nimbus training documents emphasize the faces, facial landmarks, emotions detection capabilities of Google's Cloud Vision API. And in one of the Project Nimbus training webinars, a Google engineer confirmed for an Israeli government official that it would be possible to process data through Project Nimbus in order to determine if someone is lying. So it is very clear that the tools provided through Project Nimbus have the potential to expand Israel's pattern of surveillance, of racial profiling, and other forms of tech-assisted human rights violations. It is clear that surveillance and interrogation use cases are part of this lucrative project, and that Google is putting its bottom line and its profits over the livelihood of its users, Palestinians on the ground who will be harmed by these powerful tools. So when we as Google workers learned about Project Nimbus, we knew that this was a crisis of conscience, that we needed to take action. Since November of 2021, over 1,000 Google workers have signed petitions, sent emails, pleaded with our leadership to rescind this billion-dollar contract, Project Nimbus, with the Israeli military and government. Civil society organizations, Empower Change, Jewish Voice for Peace, and dozens of others have started a campaign to support the worker-led movement, calling on Google and Amazon to rescind Project Nimbus. This campaign is called No Tech for Apartheid, and almost 40,000 people have signed our public petition, calling on these companies to recognize and to heed our calls to rescind Project Nimbus. In spite of all of this, our company's leadership has ignored our voices and refused to provide any transparency to assuage our widespread concerns. Even worse, they are abusing their power to actively silence and stifle the voices of their workers. Google retaliated immediately after I spoke out about Project Nimbus. I first spoke out about these contracts while I was on disability leave, and I returned to the office 2 weeks after speaking out. On my second day back, I was notified that the company had decided to move my role from San Francisco to Sao Paulo, effective immediately, and that I'd be given just 17 business days to commit to the move or else lose my role. Even though I had been given those 17 business days, on just the second day, my leadership was already communicating to the team that I would be leaving. Google continues to claim that the relocation order to Sao Paulo was due to its urgent business needs in Sao Paulo. But this all happened amidst the surge of Omicron at a time when no one was even working physically from the Sao Paulo offices. So it is very clear that Google's intent was to create a chilling effect to oust me in order to scare other workers into silence. But what has happened is actually the opposite of a chilling effect. Witnessing the act of retaliation made my coworkers even more determined to speak out. Over 750 of my colleagues petitioned the company to rescind its act of retaliation against me. And this led to a public petition that was signed by over 25,000 people. Google's message to workers was to stay silent, but workers' message back has been very clear. We will fight back against retaliation, and we will have each other's backs. Google's retaliatory behavior against me is far from an isolated instance. It is a continuation of the company's deeply entrenched culture of suppressing internal support for Palestinian human rights. Quelching support for Palestinian rights internally has been a tool to help Google justify its business with Israel and its decision to profit off of fueling apartheid. And while Google's act of retaliation against me was egregious, the situation is immeasurably worse for our Palestinian colleagues who are continuously subjected to extreme discrimination, bias, and marginalization across the company. Palestinians have been issued HR warnings for things as simple as openly identifying as Palestinian in the workplace or wearing traditional Palestinian clothing to work. These compounded layers of suppression, intimidation, and institutionalized bias means that our Palestinian coworkers have not been afforded the privilege that I myself have to feel safe speaking out. For this reason, myself, alongside Gabriel Schubener, as Jewish workers of Google, recognizing the privilege that we hold, chose to exercise our privilege to speak out safely. And we took a public stand against Project Nimbus in solidarity with our Palestinian colleagues and the Palestinians on the ground who will be directly impacted by these contracts. And while we might have been the only workers to speak out publicly at the beginning, this is no longer the case. As of this month, over 10 workers have now come forward with their names and with their faces to publicly denounce Google's human rights abuses via Project Nimbus. And the day that I resigned 2 weeks ago, 15 workers publicly shared their firsthand accounts of Google's egregious abuses against Palestinians. One coworker and a friend, a Palestinian Google worker, shared in their testimony. As a Palestinian, my feelings of marginalization only grew when I began seeing my coworkers issued HR warnings just for having empathy for Palestinians. Another Palestinian Google worker shared the words, "It has become impossible to express any opinion of disagreement of the war waged on Palestinians without being called into an HR meeting with the threat of retaliation." Another Palestinian Google worker says, "I was told at work that my choice to identify as Palestinian American is quote unquote offensive and anti-Semitic." As Google workers, we know that it is important for tech workers to make the choice to refuse to accept the company's weaponizations of false narratives of anti-Semitism and false narratives of Jewish identity to justify silencing our Palestinian colleagues. As another Palestinian colleague said at the end of their testimony, you have a voice and a responsibility to do something when those who are less privileged than you are the ones whose jobs and livelihoods are on the line. So we are calling on all of our fellow tech workers, on academia, on civil society, on the general public, and on our elected officials to join us in sending our message to Google and Amazon that we aren't going away until Project Nimbus goes away. We will not be silent and complicit while the world's largest search engine, which should be a public good, chooses to profit off of fueling apartheid violence and chooses to put their bottom line over humanity, shirking their very own founding motto, "Don't be evil." We will not stop saying no tech for apartheid, and we are confident that there will soon be too many voices for these companies to ignore.
Thank you so much, Ariel, for all of your work in this. I know it's not a small task, and being pretty much discriminated against for not allowing support for apartheid practices is not small. So we all are very honored to have you here today, and we appreciate all of your team's work on this project. So thank you so much again for being here with us today. And I hope that this encourages everybody to speak out against what's wrong in no matter what setting, because ultimately it takes for all of us to bind together to make some kind of change. Next up, I'd like to introduce Zarifa Baroud, who will be taking us into the next session.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you're all enjoying your Advocacy Day trainings so far. My name is Zarifa Baroud, and I am AJP's Digital Media Associate. I'm honored to be introducing our speakers for this session, who will address how we can best use U.S. policy to hold Israel accountable, as well as the importance of supporting and lobbying for Palestinian human rights-based legislation, like we're going to be doing throughout this week. So our first speaker for today is Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Representative Tlaib is a well-known progressive warrior and, in her own words, a mother working for justice for all. Born and raised in Detroit, the proud daughter of Palestinian immigrant parents, Rashida made history in 2008 by becoming the first Muslim woman to ever serve in the Michigan legislature, and ever since has been making the Palestinians in the U.S. and diaspora and back home immensely proud. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Tlaib.
Salams, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Thank you so much to the Americans for Justice in Palestine, AJP, for allowing me to share space with all of you today, and also their continued advocacy. Thank you to every single person that continues to speak truth to power. I'm truly honored to join you all again this year to discuss our shared pursuit of Palestinian liberation and human rights. Now, I don't have to tell you all that our struggle for justice is not an easy one. The Palestinian people are fighting against occupation, apartheid, and political exploitation at every single turn. We all know that international laws and human rights meant to protect the oppressed are ignored when it comes to the apartheid government of Israel, while they expand settlements, while Palestinian rights are systematically denied, and apartheid and oppression remain the laws of the land. Despite these challenges we all have faced, and the Palestinian people have faced, and the constant attempts, though, to drown us out, to silence our voices, it all is changing. You may not see it every single day, but as a member of the United States Congress, I see the tide is turning in our favor every single day. Public opinion is already continuing to shift in our favor, with Americans growing increasingly more critical of the apartheid government of Israel. They are questioning how we can claim to stand for liberty and justice while bankrolling Israel's military war crimes and human rights abuses to the tune of several $billion each year. They're questioning how Israel's government can call itself a democracy while denying millions of Palestinians their basic human rights, let alone their right to citizenship and the right to vote. Question how they can continue to enable and bankroll apartheid state that has already murdered this year our own two American citizens, Shireen Abu Akleh and Omar Assad, Allah yarhamhum, may they rest in power. These are only, again, two murders amongst dozens that have already been killed, or thousands wounded by the regime this alone. Not only Americans, but we all know Palestinians. But their cases, Shireen and Omar, their cases have galvanized a renewed interest and support and outrage in Congress. So I want you to know that even though it has been tragic for many of us, these murders have opened the eyes of many of my colleagues and countless decent people around the world to the brutal reality of living under apartheid Israel. It's nothing short of outrageous that our government continues to refuse to hold Israel accountable to these killings. I know that I will continue to push for full, transparent U.S. investigations into these murders and full accountability. It is also very, very clear that while this past year was filled with far too many painful days, I still see that many reasons to be hopeful for the future. This past year, you all, Amnesty International and the UN joined Human Rights Watch and B'Tselem come out with the same conclusion that many Palestinians and their allies have long known for decades, that Israel is an apartheid state that is systematically, through laws and actions, privileges one group over the other and doesn't value all human life equally. So this is why it's so important that movements for Palestinian liberation and Black Lives Matter movements are inherently linked. And while this is only one example of the importance of, again, making sure that we understand that we are not a country that is divided but disconnected, and our true fight for liberation of all people. I want you all to know that among progressives, it has become clear that you cannot claim to hold progressive values, yet back Israel's apartheid government. And we will continue to push back and not accept this idea that you are progressive except for Palestine any longer. And these changes, these victories are really due to the work of all of you and so many others that continue to speak truth to power. When we center our beliefs and our actions in the truth that all human life is precious, that every person deserves to live free of fear and have the opportunity to achieve their full potential, the need to oppose Israel's government's apartheid rule is obvious. The path to freedom for Palestine is long and daunting, but we must see through to its end. We owe it to not only Palestinians, but oppressed people all over the world who understand that our struggles are linked to one another. So again, know that you will always have a partner and a fighter in the United States Congress and me. And again, I thank you again for allowing me to share space with all of you. And thank you. Thank you for uplifting the Palestinian voices that again continue to be drowned out. They are no longer going to sit still in silence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Tlaib, for your hopeful and motivational words, but also for all the work that you do to truly represent Palestine and Palestinians in Congress. And like you said, not simply with words, but with action. Next up, we have Representative Betty McCollum. Betty McCollum is a Democrat representing the families of Minnesota's 4th District in the United States House of Representatives. Congresswoman McCollum is a champion of Palestinian rights within Congress by actively speaking out against Israel's oppression of Palestinians, as well as introducing the groundbreaking H.R. 2590, the Defending the Human Rights of Palestinian Children and Families Living Under Israeli Military Occupation Act, which we will be lobbying in support of this week. Thank you so much, Congresswoman McCollum. It seems like there are some technical difficulties. We can't hear the Congresswoman. Sorry, everyone. It seems that there's been some technical difficulties. We can't hear the audio. Just one moment. We'll figure this out. Sorry, everyone. Just sit tight. We'll figure everything out very soon. Okay, so I'm actually going to be going on to our next speaker until we figure out those technical difficulties. So next up, we have Congresswoman Judy Chu. Judy Chu was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in July 2009. She represents California's 27th Congressional District and currently serves on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over legislation pertaining to taxes, revenues, Social Security, and Medicare. In that committee, Representative Chu is a member of the subcommittees on health, giving her oversight over healthcare reform and crucial safety net programs, worker and family support, and oversight. Representative Chu has too been a consistent champion of Palestinian rights with her support of Palestinian rights-based legislation. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Congressmember Judy Chu, and I'm so happy to be speaking to you all for the annual Palestine Advocacy Day Plenary. I want to thank Americans for Justice in Palestine for organizing this event and all of you for taking part. I can say from firsthand experience that your advocacy is making a difference and helping to change the conversation. We urgently need your voices because time is running out to make needed progress towards peace that will ensure a safe and prosperous future for both Palestinians and Israelis. I have been to Palestinian villages in the occupied territories, and I have seen firsthand the way this unjust policy has created incredible hardship on these families, from lack of access to roads and water to harassment at the hands of the Israeli Defense Forces. That's why I've made it a priority to oppose anything that furthers annexation or makes a future two-state solution harder to achieve. It is essential that we all speak out against the demolition of homes and evictions in the occupied territories, and why earlier this year I joined Representative Melanie Stansbury and many of our colleagues in signing a letter to the State Department urging engagement to prevent evictions of more than 1,000 Palestinians from the Masafer Yatta area of the West Bank. But it is not enough to stop the expansion of settlements. We need to end the occupation entirely and give the Palestinian people a chance at a better future. That means looking at the way our support for Israel could possibly be contributing to this problem. It is time for transparency, accountability, and oversight into our aid to Israel so that the money is only used for the purposes we intended, not to further annexation or violate the rights of Palestinians. That is why I am a co-sponsor of Representative McCollum's bill, H.R. 2590, which would require this report so we could better understand how our aid is used. There are still many more options for resolving this conflict, but one thing for sure is that this only ends with a free, secure, and stable Palestinian state living side by side with a free, secure, and stable Jewish state. Anything else is a recipe for continuing this cycle of violence, which has already gone on too long. So thank you again for your continued advocacy on behalf of Palestinians and peace.
Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, first of all, thank you, Representative Judy Chu, for all the work that you do in representing Palestinian rights in Congress. Unfortunately, Representative McCollum got called to the House floor to vote, but she wants to communicate to you all that she's excited to be here and involved with AJP Action. And even though she wasn't able to speak, we all thank her for the incredible work that she consistently does for Palestine. Next up, we have another exciting speaker, Congressman André Carson. Congressman Carson is now in his 7th full term in the U.S. House of Representatives. He has established himself as an influential leader and respected public servant, fighting for good-paying jobs, economic growth, and safer communities for Indiana's working families. Together with some other like-minded members of Congress, he has worked to bring solutions to some of the most important issues facing his city, nation, as well as the world, particularly justice for Palestine and accountability for Israel. Thank you so much, Congressman Carson.
Hello, this is Congressman André Carson. It is great to be with you today. I want to thank Americans for Justice in Palestine Action for their amazing work fighting for the rights of Palestinians. I also want to take a moment to remember Shireen Abuirshaid, who should be with us. You know, it's very important for the U.S. government to conduct our own investigation to hold Israel accountable for this unforgettable killing of an American journalist. Every human killed, American or not, deserves justice, Palestinians included. I'm proud to lead the Justice for Shireen Act, and I encourage everyone here today to contact their member of Congress and urge them to join as an original co-sponsor. I stand with the Palestinian people against military occupation, blockades, illegal settlements, and racial discrimination. Thanks for being here today. Keep up the good fight. I want to thank AJP, Sister Aya, and the team for organizing this wonderful Advocacy Day. Take care.
Thank you so much, Representative Carson. We echo your calls for justice for Shireen. And these were all very motivational and useful statements that we can be taking into our meetings with us this week. So thank you for also reassuring us Palestinian advocates that through action that holding Israel accountable is not a failed mission, as well as giving us meaningful representation in Congress, a space where Palestinians and justice seekers generally have been isolated from for so long. And a final big thank you to all those who attended our session today, but it's not over. Next up, we have our second session, Palestine/Israel and Domestic U.S. Politics, moderated by my colleague, Mohammed Habba. Thank you so much. Ma salama.